Alright, so I wanted to go back. This is Origins Part 2. To Marcus Aurelius, who dared to follow them into their native marshes, lost 33,000 men in the first battle. And though he afterwards beat them in the defiles of Carnunta, he acknowledged that he was indebted for his success to the intervention of a miracle. Though this miraculous advantage astonished, it did not dispirit them. They soon passed the Rhine and made incursions into Gaul. Alexander Severus, who then governed the empire, hastened to attack them. On the first news of their eruption. So they've now made it back into Gaul, the Franks. But though he was a brave prince, he rather chose to employ his treasures in the purchase of a peace than to hazard a battle, the loss of which might deprive him of his dominions. His successor, Maximian, enabled the Gauls for some time to enjoy a state of tranquility by repressing the incursions of this reflex with an untractable people who did not appear to have undertaken any enterprise of importance till the reign of that unfortunate emperor Valerian. So they kind of are letting them be as they are. They're not fighting them at the moment. So it is true indeed that we are told in the Chronicle of Alexandria that the two Decii, the father and son, were killed in an action with the Franks. But all other historians assure us that these princes fell beyond the Danube in an expedition against the Goths. It was not till the reign of Valerian and the Arturians, the Bructeri, the Shamori, the Salians, the Catai, the Amsivarian, the Cauci, the Sicumbri, and the Frisians, all inhabitants of Germany, began to render themselves formidable under the appellation of Franks. So now they are saying we are, tribals of. We learn from history that they spread themselves over the first and second Germanica, that Aurelian, who was afterwards raised to the purple, taking one of their detachments by surprise, killed 700 men and took 300 prisoners. The rejoicings and songs of congratulation that were made on this occasion sufficiently demonstrate the dread in which this nation was holden by the Romans, since they laid so great an emphasis on so trivial an advantage. Sometime after, during the reign of the famed emperor, they attempted a second eruption into Gaul, but they were repulsed by Gallienus at the passage of the Rhine, and the affrighted Belgae thereby delivered from the terror in which they had inspired them. But when the famed Gallienus ascended the throne, he took so little care to preserve the rights and prerogatives of his station that as many tyrants sprung up as there were provinces in the empire. The Franks took advantage of this universal commotion, seized all the vessels they could find, and penetrated some of them into Spain, which they ravaged during 12 years, and others into Africa, where everything was laid waste by fire and sword. At length, tired with pillage and depredations, they returned to their own country, loaded with booty, the possession of which no one attempted to dispute with them. So here they are, waltzing around being pirates, essentially. They grabbed the ships from Gallienus's time and took over Spain as marauders into Africa. So the Franks are quite busy looting. The long interregnum which followed the death of Aurelian revived their avidity. They passed the Rhine, accompanied by many different nations of Germany, overran Gaul, and took 70 cities by surprise. But Probus, marching against them, good heavens, here is Probus marching against them with a powerful army, beat them in several engagements, retook all the places they had subdued, and pursued them into their native marshes. Now, when you keep saying native marshes, I'm thinking the area from, we'll call it Toulouse, Saint Raphael, the Cannes, in there somewhere. There's marshes and the horses, the wild Camargue. The Franks, whom he made prisoners in this glorious expedition, were all transported by his orders to the shores of Pontus, from the hope that, when thus exiled, they would cease to be troublesome for the empire. He was mistaken, however, for these martial youths, seeing him occupied in other wars, seized a few barks, and traversing the ocean, they spread desolation all over the coasts of Asia Minor, of Thrace, Macedonia, Greece, Africa, and Sicily, the capital of which last kingdom they reduced and pillaged. These depredations irritated the emperors to such a degree that they vowed the destruction of these untamable people. But their threats were impotent as their efforts. This brave nation, says Tacitus, we're going to call him, had always maintained its dependence, and in spite of our vain triumphs has never been subdued. Constantus pursued them into such of their retreats as had hitherto been deemed inaccessible, and having taken a great number of prisoners, had them conveyed to the country about Amiens, Beauvais, Langres, and Troyes, where he compelled them to cultivate the very lands which they had recently laid waste. Constantine carried on a cruel war against them, ravaging their lands and burning their villages. He also took 2 of their monarchs, who were torn to pieces by beasts, in the amphitheatre at Trèves. The orators of those days, by their attempts to enhance the glory of this prince, have only exhibited his barbarity in a stronger light. Other nations, say they, shrink from the attack of the wild beasts, to which they are exposed. But the Franks, by facing and irritating them, prove that they can die, though they cannot be subdued. So Constantine really was a worthy opponent here. And now he's going to switch his boots. Watch this. He persuaded Constant. He persuaded of his inability to refrain the incursions of an enemy, whom all the forces of his father had proved inadequate to repel, courted their friendship. So after all said and done, he wants to be their friend, and was highly commended for appropriating the treasures of the state to the purchase of their alliance. After this treaty, so glorious to the Franks, we see them holding the first places at court. So now the barbarian savages are now in court. And in the armies of the empire, we find Silanus, Grand Master of the militia under Constantine, a Melobad, superintendent of the domestics, a Merobold, a Bauteau, a Riconard, a patricians and consuls under Gratian, a Caretto, a governor of, and afterwards a regent of the West under the great, here comes Theodosius. But while these men were the support of the empire, others of the Franks laid it waste by their incursions. Okay, so anyway, the Franks are always starting to become a little bit more civilized here with the Constant group. But while they were support of the empire, others of the Franks laid it waste by their incursion. So it seems to be some of the Franks are going, hey, we're snuggling up to court and all of that, and there's still a few that are saying, well, maybe not. Maybe I'm still gonna be a marauder incursion. All right, so that I think I'll leave it right there. Okay, what's that one? Oh, it's 12 minutes. Yeah, I'm getting a little tired. No, I'm on page 13, so I'll hold it back. Hold it back before I go on to that one.